Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the You Are Not Broken podcast. I have my friend Juliana Hauser on today, and we're going to talk about her new book that's coming out. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be back.
When's the new book come out?
September 23rd.
September 23rd. September's a good month.
It is.
So get it now. And we're going to talk about your new book called A New Position on Sex, A Guide to Greater Sexual Confidence, Pleasure, and Authenticity. It's not just sex tips.
That is
I love
correct.
it. Why did you write this book?
I wrote it because I've been doing this work that is based on for 20 years, and there's only one of me. So I wanted to be able to make it accessible for everybody. And when I've seen what the work has done to people that I have been able to work on individually with and in groups, I want everyone to have access to this because we are not being given this level of information about who we are as sexual beings. And I think it is a huge reason why we have such a negative sexual culture currently and so many problems within it.
I think that in order to get good at sex, whatever that means, maybe we'll talk about that, you have to unlearn first. Like before you can learn good sex, or part of learning good sex is unlearning the shit that got you where you are.
Yeah, agreed. It's a lot of work. And you have to have trust that there is something out there that's going to make a difference. You have to believe that sexuality is a necessity and not a luxury. And then you have to have the bravery to have curiosity about what could change. You have to understand that sexuality is worth it.
I think let's dig into that because it's like, it's one thing for you to say it is, or me to say it is, or like the sexperts who are like, men die less when they have orgasms and like, stuff like that. But it's like, dude, you're looking at the average, I'm going to pick an age, 45-year-old woman. She knows exercise is worth it and doesn't exercise. She knows 8 hours of sleep is worth it and doesn't sleep. Like she's allowed so much of societal demands and taking care of other people to claw away at like everything that's good for her body. So what would you tell that person when we're like, well, I know that like, dude, an awesome sex life is freaking awesome. Like, but it's not enough for me to just say, and I never want somebody to do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you do in a society that has taken away the ability for women to do everything that's good for them away?
And told her she has to be doing everything in order to be a good woman and having a good life. It's such a conundrum that we have positioned women into. So what I say is the first thing is I'm not telling you to go have sex acts. That's not what I'm talking about in this. To me, that's the addict.
I love that.
It is, I want you to look at the foundation of a house. I'm actually in the middle of a house renovation.
You're like, I know there's good stuff at the end of this.
So I am living what I'm teaching right now. I'm living a metaphor. I'm saying similar to what you said before is like we have to do the unlearning, but after you unlearn, you have to start with, well, then what is the right foundation? And for me, it's holistic sexuality. And so everything that we've been teaching women, but everyone about what sex is about sex acts. And that's one of the 9 things that I consider are part of holistic sexuality. It's a part of it, but it's one of 9. It's 1/9 of this. And that is, it's unfortunate that that's all we understand. So when I start talking about sexuality being a necessity and a luxury, what we all hear is sex acts is a necessity. And that's not it. It's part of it. And so if I can just have somebody give me just a couple more minutes after that to hear what I mean by that, then usually I have a buy-in. And actually a releasing of tension and someone exhales because they're like, okay, you're not going to tell me I have to have sex to be good. And I was like, no, I'm not saying that. And sometimes in this work, what I have people finding out is that they say no more often. And they say no to the things that really are a no for them. And they say yes to the things that feel right. And when you start making that shift in your life, when you really know who you are and you really understand what your yeses and nos are, and you live them and people can trust your yeses and respect your nos, it opens up a lot. And then you start relearning a new way of being in the world and a new relationship with sexuality. I remember years ago, I had this workshop called Finding Sexy. And I was used to having lines out the door for my workshops. And this one was crickets. Like no one wanted to come to this workshop. And I was like at the door, like, come on in. Like, I'm not scary. And I started asking people, like almost like interviews on the streets. And I said, what is up about this word? And they said, it's sexy. I don't feel sexy. I don't want to be told what sexy is. It's out of my life. It's offensive. It's upsetting. And I was like, well, that's why the word finding is in front of it. Let's figure it out. And I really should have said figuring out sexy. And that's how I feel about sexuality is I want everyone to figure out who they are as a sexual being on their own terms, not what society has said.
I love the finding out who you are, knowing who you are, and using the we'll say concept of sex, not that sex acts, and I love how you clarify that, as a tool to learn who you are. And to learn, like, and to give yourself permission to be like, what do I like? What do I not like? Because it really can be the start of finding yourself and like, what kind of shoes do I like? What kind of hair do I want to wear? What kind of music do I want to listen to? And really like starting to listen to this like inner self that we've completely lost relationship with in midlife.
Agreed. And if you could figure out who you are as a sexual being, holistic sexual being, because it is such a hard place, we aren't given a lot of space to talk about it safely and in any kind of evolved way because there's so many values and political things and negativity associated with it. If you could sift through all of that and get to a place that you're like, okay, then what is the yes for me in any of this? The actual skills that you gain in curiosity, in knowing who you are, it transforms. Like it's not even just a topic; it's the skill within a very hard topic that actually becomes the most transformative part. Then it becomes this synergistic thing. You're like, okay, like I do feel it's really a journey of self-trust. And when you learn to trust yourself and you learn to show up for yourself, in general, life changes. But if you do that within who you are as a holistic sexual being, it is absolutely life altering because you now get to have this expanded way of interacting with who we are as a sexual being. If you're breathing, you're sexual. It just is. We've just been taught the wrong definition of it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, to me, it's like there's a body acceptance that comes with this journey as well, because I think like I'll say pre holistic sexuality or like the current state of affairs is like my body's too jiggly, or it's too old, it's too wrinkly, it's too tight, it's too loose, it's too stressed, it's too blah, and it's like this absolute disparagement of the physical body, which is insane when you think the only reason we're here is because we have one of these things.
Correct.
Why aren't we trying to be as effing grateful about it as we can? And by the way, it's amazing. And by the way, it feels amazing.
And one of the things I talk about in the book is having body compassion
Yes.
what a pivotal thing that is. And actually studies show that it is the most transformative thing you can do with your relationship with your body is to embrace body compassion.
I love that. I think the other thing about this journey is like, and this will not resonate with everybody, but I think it does for some people, is there is a certain level of like, fuck it, that
Mhm.
comes to like going on this journey because you have to discard traditional, for lack of better words, but dogma of like how it's supposed to be, what you're supposed to do. And you have to realize like that hurt, that got you to have shitty sex. It
Mhm.
didn't serve you. There's a certain level of like freedom and fuck it to be like, I want to go see what this is actually all about. Like there's a strong amount of badassery that goes into this journey from my view.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, yes, it's all of that is a yes. I agree with it wholeheartedly. And I acknowledge along with that is sometimes it depends on how you get to the fuck it. And like sometimes that is, I guess, the beautiful, like, that's right. Fuck it. Fuck it. And other times there's more grieving attached to it. And when you hit it in that way, you have to be able to experience a leap of faith in yourself and like is it going to be worth it, because sometimes people aren't willing to go there because if they haven't tried the last thing, then there still is a little bit of hope. Like the avoidance adds some bit of like, well, it's not all to shit at this point.
Well, and it's safe, right?
Yep.
Like the shitty sex you're having is safe.
Right. Our brains will choose chaos that is comfortable to us, like familiar, than it is like to something that's unfamiliar and feels unsafe. Every time it'll choose that. You have to overcome it in that, and same with who we are as sexual beings. And as you said earlier, like we can say all we want that the great sex is great sex and it makes a huge difference. I I love it when I see a woman who says it on her, like who can really show it for herself. Like who I am as a sexual being is so much different than who I was 20 years ago. And for me, like part of my journey is I learned to stop pushing through things that weren't right for me and weren't good for me. Like we, as women, we experience this every single month. Like if you have discomfort with your periods, we learn how to just push through it. And if you have sex that's like that, you just really accumulate all these neural pathways of overcoming something bad, and we don't have a lot of neural pathways that are like, hold on a second, no, I don't want this, I don't like this, and we don't have a lot to draw from in our brain science, and so we have to think our way through that and feel our way through it. And if you can do all of that while showering and taking care of the 100 things that you have to do that day, what a miracle. And it is worth it. I have never seen somebody, especially I've never seen a woman go through this process and be like, well, that was a waste of time and it did nothing for me. It is always like, thank goodness. Thank
That's
goodness
true.
I did.
Yeah.
And I actually had this woman who let me share this story, who I was working for this organization called Camp Empowerment. And so every year I went and did workshops that had to do with sexuality. And she would look at me and she was like, not this year, Dr. J, but maybe someday I'll be coming for you and we'll talk about it. And it took her 2 years to be able to feel comfortable to have a conversation with me. And as we grew into that relationship, what she said to me is she's like, I was so afraid of you. And I was so afraid that what you were saying was true for everybody else but me. And I couldn't have the conversation with you that I walked away and I realized that, yep, it wasn't for me. And she's like, so you kept up with me, Juliana, and you let me do it. And now her story is absolutely phenomenal. She's in her mid 60s, and on paper, the way she describes it is she's like, it's not where I thought I was going to be. I thought working with you, I was going to make me having sex 5 times a week, and hanging from the chandeliers. That's what I thought I had to achieve in order to feel happy about where I was. And she's like, the difference is I know how to talk to my husband now. And I'm not afraid to have that conversation. I'm not sitting in resentment or avoiding him. When we are able to have sex because of aging bodies changing, I love the kind of sex we're having. And it gets to be what we want because we finally talked about what we want. And it's
Duh.
not what everyone else said.
I love it. I mean, people do like you. I want to expand on like people do have to find somebody, whether that's a book, whether that's a trusted friend, whether it's, me or you, to kind of be the guiding light of like, we know that there are women who've gone through this journey just like you. Like we've seen what's possible, right? Like we've seen the hero's journey. We're coming back. We're communicating about it because it is kind of you don't know what's through the gate, right? But so my question is there any data in the sex therapy research world that women who are confident in their sexuality and can communicate about it and are happy, et cetera, does that correlate to overall like life confidence, body confidence, work confidence? Like, do we have data that it actually spills over? Again, not as a reason to do it, but in my experience, women who are confident about this, they're just grounded, confident people. Like it doesn't exist in a bubble.
Correct. It doesn't be, and that's really how I got to. So the answer is yes. There is research out there that talks about it. There's not a lot of it because as you and I have said 1,000 times, there's just not nearly as enough research in the sexuality world as there needs to be. Particularly if you put it into more of the psychosocial world of looking at sex. Partly it's because people don't want to talk about it, so it's hard to get people to participate in research. The other thing is that there's studies that show that people don't tell the truth when they're being asked questions about who they are sexually. So there's issues in that too. We could do a whole episode on that. But for the research that is out there, and then I would even say what's even more profound is just the anecdotal conversations and the presentations that we have that haven't been necessarily under a rigorous study, that it is across the board that a woman who has put time into who she is as a sexual being, not just again about what sex she's having, but the sexual being that informs what she's doing with her body, it makes an enormous difference. And I think it's a lot of reasons why people are so afraid of the power that women have when they are sexually confident. And that has made sex such a negative and threatening thing it's not necessarily because of the sex she's having. It's because of who she becomes when
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
having
She's
the
like,
right
I
sex
might
for
have to
her.
burn the whole house down. And you're
That is
like,
right.
that is possible, my friends. That is possible. It probably won't happen for most people. They don't have to burn the whole house down. But I think that's the fear, is like, if I actually get confident and advocate and ask for what I want and like my life, I'm going to have to change a lot of things. And that is the truth. And it's very scary.
Agreed. My mentor, Betty Dotson, when she was alive doing workshops, she would often start a workshop saying that.
Really?
She'd say, she always did groups of 10, and she'd say, there will be a percentage of you. And depending on how sad she was feeling that day, she'd put a number to it. And she would say, sometimes it's like half of you are going to end your relationships after you leave this workshop. Half of you are going, it is not half, but it is a pretty high percentage of relationships
Jeez.
that at the least change dramatically and at the most end. And that can be your romantic and sexual relationships, but even friendships. Your work, people change their careers after they've done this kind of work. And there is a loss to that, but the gain is so worth it. And the other thing is if you are partnered and you want this work to not, you need to do the work with your partner. Your partner needs to be doing it, and you need to not be doing all the emotional labor, because you're going to grow so exponentially when you work within your sexual self. And if you're partner in it, your partner needs to be doing it too. They have to be doing their own work and alongside of it, or the chasm between the two of you will be too difficult.
That just makes me think of effing Viagra. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Viagra is great. We all deserve medications
Yep.
that help our body. Like,
Correct.
well, I will, before any haters, Viagra stock owners come after me. But it's like, it's once you realize the depth of this and the fact that Viagra came out in 1998. In 1998 dollars, it made its first billion in year 2 of sales.
Mm.
It's the most widely recognized pharmaceutical on the planet. 90% of men are heterosexual, which means that 90% of households that have Viagra in it have vaginas through which the penis wants to be sexual. Like, it gets dark pretty fast. We just gave people super dicks with no communication skills, no taking care of the vulvas and vaginas and those people's brains. Like, I don't think we will ever understand the absolute destruction, just for me to be like completely the antagonist of Viagra today, that's put on people.
I asked people specifically in my intake if that has been a part of their sexual timeline, is using Viagra or a version of it. Because the thing that I know that happened, and I've often said that if we're going to be policing warnings on boxes, the warning box that I want on Viagra is you need to have a therapist alongside of this when you're doing it, because for most people who are using Viagra, they're coming to Viagra having had so many issues in their erections that they have
The
had
relationship strained.
that, and they've had a different kind of sex because there's often an urgency to it. And so the way that they are having sex, and people think that when they take it, they're going to start having sex differently, but they don't. They still
Because they're
the
set
same
in
way.
the patterns.
That's right. And so which is not typically the pre-Viagra sex is not pleasure focused on the female, and it is basically like, I got to get this in and out as fast as I can before I lose it. And so it's a whole lot of jackhammering or things like that. It's very quick and it's very anxiety based, and that doesn't go away until they can trust that Viagra is not going to do that. But then we both know sex on Viagra is different also. And there's no one guiding them on how to have sex differently and how to lessen their anxiety that is already so associated with sex. So they're bringing new anxiety to a new way of having sex. And then the woman that's having sex with them is still like, has her own issues and anxiety and fears and avoidance.
Nobody treated her GSM.
Correct. Right. And so there needs to be a warning box. And frankly, I think there needs to be like you have to show that you have a therapist on hand to get Viagra in order to have good.
I mean,
sex.
Right now there is a gender bias because that's not, as everybody knows, that's not required for Viagra.
Correct.
But for women to get Addyi and the meds for low desire, some insurance companies are requiring therapy first. And that's a big problem because that's not gender equality between
Correct.
medications for sexual health. And so we're actually not okay with insurance companies requiring therapy first for their meds because it's not required for Viagra.
Right. And
but yes, I agree what you mean of like, I think, there's not enough sex therapists, but
Yes.
like the way the situation is broken, like, do you ever just think, because I think I'm like, "Oh my god, there's only 1,000 female urologists and there's only, 20,000 trained menopause people," and, like, do you ever think like, "Oh my god, whatever sex therapists there are, there's only X of us and there's
Oh, yeah. 300,000,000 people.
100,000,000
Yes.
American adults?" Like,
Oh,
does
think
this
it a lot.
overwhelm you a little bit sometimes? Because I wouldn't say the majority of them are having great sex.
Oh, they agreed, or they don't even realize how their sex could be different and could be changing their life in such different ways. I think it all the time, and it's even I'm sure you do this too, like,
Yeah,
when
I
I
think
see
about
a
it nightly.
yes. I think about it most on planes. It's so funny. I sit there on planes, I think, "Who here is thinking about sex?" I am. And I'm wondering, and I think just think about it in general, but then I also, like, do lots of problem solving on planes as well. But when I get to see a sex therapist in the wild, I'm sure it's like with you, I'm like, "Oh, you too." And I feel like we know what they've
You
gone
know the
through.
burden,
They're
like
in the
the
trenches.
amount of
Yeah.
work there is to do.
Yeah, and to be like in the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, like, we have to have very thick skins, and there's a lot thrust upon us that isn't accurate, and we have to live inherently by being in this specialty what we're teaching. It's an impossibility, which is another thing that makes people like us intimidating and scary to people, is that we have a confidence in who we are as a sexual being, because we have to know who we are and be confident in who we are as a person in order to be in this space, because it is not a friendly space, and like inward looking outward a lot of the times. And so it's also really important. And we know, like, lawyers don't have wills, doctors don't go to doctor's appointment, therapists don't have therapists in a lot of ways. As people in the sexuality world, I don't think we have an option but to do the work ourselves, so that we are good stewards as
Yeah, I
well,
mean,
which is a lot of pressure.
I agree. I'm like, if you don't do the work of this, if I don't do the I wouldn't know what the hell I was talking about, first of all,
Correct.
and I think it would feel very inauthentic, and then I'd just be, like, shilling vibrators, and don't get me wrong, I love shilling
Mhm.
vibrators,
Mhm.
but,
Me too.
it's like, I just think of us growing up in, like, the Cosmopolitan magazines, etcetera, of, like, the one move you need tonight and the best, hottest lingerie for the winter season, and it's like, it's so superficial, and it's part of the undoing, right? But it's like, it makes you think there's just a right skill or a right tool or a right look to obtain, and then it's Valhalla, and it's like, that's not how it works.
Correct. And you add that misinformation to the just pervasive message that our worth is based on our sexual currency.
Yeah. Yeah.
And add that to the space that we're both in with menopause, and how women are just trying to figure out what this quote currency is that everyone else is putting upon them, while trying to figure out what they want for themselves, and figuring out everything else that's happening in their body on top of it. It's a lot for us
It's a lot.
to.
Dude, I'm gonna go down a dark rabbit hole real quick, and then I promise I'll pull us back out. But I think there is no more egregious symbolism of this right now than the aesthetic surgeons chopping off labia
Mm.
to achieve a manufactured look that in no way enhances a female's sexual performance, except for if she believes her body image is closer to the mainstream. Improved body image can help sexual function. So there's a sliver of truth in this. But it's like thousands and thousands of dollars to go through major surgery to cut off sexual organs to achieve a look. Like, does nobody else think this is absolutely nuts?
Mm. Yeah, and there's some studies show that it's the number one surgery that is being asked to perform. And I know studies can change all the time, but it is a very popular surgery that people are seeking on their own, and internationally it's very popular. There are some people that they do it also, like if they're big bike riders and if they have big labor. There are some
If it's
physical
a
reasons
medical
too.
problem and
It's
affecting
different,
function,
right?
different
Yes,
story.
but if you're doing it
If you're doing it to
because
look like Barbie, which is a plastic Mattel product,
I know.
it's
Or, I have one of the things that I'm drawn to and that I love in the work that I do is I gather lots of stories. I have so many stories of women who are needing to heal from experiences of receiving oral sex or avoiding oral sex because of fear of what their labia looks like, fear of what their partner looking at their labia, their vulva looks like, or having an interpretation of somebody's reaction to giving oral sex based on that, and then having horrible genital body dysmorphia or avoidance of that experience of pleasure, then it can also go to like not wanting to touch themselves, which is an issue about self-pleasure. But it also goes to, again, menopause, that I work with people that are so afraid to use vaginal cream, like testosterone or estradiol cream, because they don't want to touch themselves. And when we unpack it, it comes back from 30, 40 years ago. Some guy in college went down on them and rushed to wash their face afterwards, or made a look like, oh, wow, you've got big inner lips. Like, whoa. And that one statement from one person has changed them to the point that they now have such a negative reaction to their genitals. And that's, again, like the work we're talking about, the unlearning that you have to do, the faith that you have to have. And I want to give one powerful story with that. Is one woman, and I mean, many women, I have stories like this, but she and I were working together for a while, and her husband of already 20 years had said to her, I really miss oral sex. And is there anything that we can do to help you feel more comfortable with this? And so we started working together, and the story came out that this had happened in college, that a guy that she'd been dating for a while never said a word, but washed his face every time that he went down on her. And her interpretation was that she must have smelled bad or tasted bad, and that's why he did it. But they never talked about it. He never said anything. It was all her interpretation. And so through the years, she just made the decision. It was untoward, and she didn't want to deal with that. Fast forward, afterward, we'd been working together about 6 months. She had a college reunion, and at the college reunion, she happened to run into this guy and made the decision to say, I know this is a lot, and this is from many, many years ago. But I have to ask you, like, do you remember? Like, was it bad? Like, what was that about? And he knew exactly what she was talking about. He remembered. And he was like, no. He's like, one time you made a face. And so I thought that you didn't like dealing with me after I'd done that. So I was just trying to be respectful to you. And I took it up.
Stop it.
Yeah. And she'd already, the work that we've been doing helped her to have that conversation. And I thought, this happens all the time because we don't know how to communicate, and because we aren't given the
stories
space.
We tell ourselves in our heads.
That's correct. Right. And if you do this work, and again, I just can't reiterate enough, I'm not trying to push sex acts on people. I am trying to say, don't avoid sexuality in general. And it is surprising how you can't get away from sexuality if you understand it in a broader definition. And it will come for you. And it is a much better process if you are in charge of that experience of interaction.
Yeah, I love it. First of all, I'd like to say to all I'm using the word Steve just because it came to my head, but for all the shitty Steves, and sorry to any Steve, I love you, but like the shitty college guy, which this guy wasn't even a shitty college guy, but it's like, F them, they were kids too.
Yes.
Like, we gotta let that go, man.
Yes.
Like, don't stop giving Steve the power.
Yes.
On your life 40 years later, first of all.
That's right.
Second of all, women, oral sex. Just let me tell you, it's really, really, really good stuff. Like,
really
do the work, accept the pleasure. It's insanely pleasurable. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Like, after 330 some podcast episodes, I just feel like people need to know that simple fact.
Yes. And embrace your vulva. Embrace it. Look at it, know it, embrace it. And
yeah, it's pretty,
work with it.
It's pretty incredible.
Every variation of vulva, and especially labia, has such potential of pleasure. And if you understand that, and I've said this before, like my favorite book is The Clitoral Truth. It's an old book. It's a classic. And she does such a beautiful job of combining our anatomy and our pleasure potential. And part of that is really, again, like just embracing it. And I there's all sorts of artwork you can do with it. There's all, again, this kind of said earlier, this isn't for everybody. I have a goal that I want to do a vulva casting. And then on top of that, like, I want to have the courage to like put it up somewhere. And
you're like,
so
that's my vulva.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome.
It's like a door knocker to like your new renovated house.
Exactly.
That's the doorbell.
Right. And that's not for everybody. And that's not the goal.
For everybody.
It's not the goal. It isn't. I want everyone to have their own version of what it feels. And for me, when you're doing the work within sexuality, you should find your way of having a nudge, but not a shove. And I do so much work that a lot isn't a nudge for me anymore. So I have to go a little further to have a shove to keep in the work. So vulva casting it is, but everyone else will have
You're
their
like,
own nudge.
2025, we were to the point of vulva casting, but you don't, but like, that's not for beginners.
No, it's not. I mean, it
No.
could be, but it doesn't.
Let's
typically.
talk about arousal, because I'm very interested in arousal now, and I'm gonna explain my theory as I'm developing it. So Masters and Johnson, Kinsey, etc., the very male model of how you go from like desires always comes first, and then there's arousal, and then there's orgasm, and then there's resolution. It's this very linear thing. The orgasm's at the top of the mountain. We call it getting over the top of the mountain. The orgasm is the end all be all, and that's kind of how we've been trained. But the sexperts, the people who are good at sex, they prioritize time, they work on it, they explore, they see what their body can do. We are completely ignoring what I think is the most beautiful part of the whole thing, and it's living in the arousal time frame. I call it the arousal room. It's like, it is a very nice place to hang out. And nobody was taught about that.
No, I mean, that's the scary place. That's the scary room. That's the panic room that some people
It is a
put it
panic
into.
room for some people.
Yeah. And it has, and I think for some reason, not only has just our culture made it be something that is so scary and threatening, but I also think one of the most common questions that I'm asked is this normal? And particularly about
to be aroused or to enjoy the arousal time?
To what arouses you.
Okay. So what arouses me normal?
Correct.
Got it.
Yes. And you can imagine the answer is like, yes, yep.
Right. Like, it's a short answer, right? It's 3-letter words.
It is, right. I hate the word normal anyway, but so I always correct it and say common. Yes, it's common. Yes, it is common. Not everybody feels that is arousing, but it is common. And I have really yet to come across something that isn't common, because I ask people and people want to share that with me. So I have a long list of what is arousing to people. And some of it is like, oh, interesting that is arousing, and also how cool. It's really interesting. I feel so lucky to be in the career that I'm in, because it normalizes a lot for me too, to hear what is arousing to a lot of people. And it's also really sobering to me to hear how afraid people are of what arousing them means about them, whether it's fantasy, whether it's thoughts, whether it's the acts, or when they're in the room. And to get to your point, like, once we can get past that part and embrace what arouses us, when you can get to that place, I agree with you. There is a humming, there's an energy force in that arousal state that you really can harness for confidence, for your relationship connections, for your overall wellness and ability to be content. And that probably sounds to some people like, what are you talking about? But it's true. It does. And there is a happiness associated with arousal that for most people, I mean, I use content more than happiness, because there are some people that arousal state is about pain. And so I don't want to confuse that aspect, but there is a different energy that you live in that is good for the science of your body when you don't resist arousal. And there's a lot of psychology that works into not resisting arousal.
Are there books, or I don't even know, like, where do people go just to learn about like the arousal? Because I think arousal is like, it's at the stoplight, take a left on your way to orgasm.
Right. Yes.
Right. And it's
right.
like, no, this is like, I'm like, now I hope no like brand new beginners are listening to this episode, because now we're getting into like the advanced topic of like, fuck the orgasm, just hang out in arousal.
Right. Yes.
Right? But
yes.
It's like, are there good resources on just like getting into the arousal space? I'm thinking, while you think on that, I'm thinking,
yes.
I'll try to figure out what I'm thinking.
Yes, and I'll send you links to put into the show notes of it also. There are people.
Kath and Jesse.
Yes.
Kath and Jesse, I'm looking for their books right now. I think their books talk a lot about like living in the female arousal state. not living there like you're loading the dishwasher, but
Right.
like having your intimate time be more prioritized on arousal
Hmm.
than like the orgasm and finishing the orgasm. Like it's a
Yes.
radical rethink of what sex is.
Yes. The way that some people will describe it too is that if you've heard people talking about how to control the male orgasm, like male ejaculation, like being able to stop and start that, it's not completely dissimilar for that for women. It's just harder to visually see that or to have as much to it. There's a little bit more psychology to it. As
Yeah,
it's
you're saying like it'd be like female ejaculatory control is
correct.
kind of staying in the arousal state.
Correct. It's
Yeah,
just
got it.
similar to it, and that's how some people speak about it. And there's the physical aspect of it, and then there's the mental aspect of staying in the arousal
Yeah,
state, and
the
there's
the
techniques
breath
for both.
work. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and like the ecstatic breath work, like Barbara Corrales is to me one of the top people who her book is called Urban Tantra, and she speaks a lot
It's called
about.
what?
It's called Urban Tantra.
Urban
That's
Tantra. I
Urban
love
Tantra.
that name.
Fabulous, and she is, just as she's really stepped away from some of her work, but she is one of the pioneers of pleasure and was a contemporary of Betty Dodson also, and just a beautiful person who's doing really, really good work, and her book is very accessible to understanding that, and breathwork wasn't something that for me came easily. It just it didn't connect with me as much until I started working with Barbara. And the first time that she calls it like ecstatic breathing, we did an ecstatic breathing circle, and I got it. And I'm like, whoa, like that is powerful. It is true. And some people call it like fire breathing. Like, there's a lot of things you can learn. Again, it's a little more in the
People who
once
are
you've
new
done
here
some of the
are
other
like,
stuff first.
"Whoa."
But yes, but it's what to me is more important. Like, so there will be people who won't want to do that, and that is completely fine. But what I'm saying is there is something for everybody to find your entry point into that room. And like, so my first pillar of holistic sexuality is sensuality. And the reason why it's first is because everyone has senses. You may have different access or you may not have all your senses, but everyone has some of those senses. And if you start there, it's really a journey of embodiment. And when you can connect to your body or reconnect with your body if it's changing, then that gives you just the world becomes your oyster of figuring out all those things, and you get to redefine what arousal means. And arousal can mean yum. And it's as simple as that word and how that feeling happens in your body. Too, arousal can be you are just about to climax and anything in between that. And I think most people, when they're thinking arousal, they are thinking lubrication, they are thinking panting, they are thinking like they're, that they are really involved in this sex act buildup, and that's part of it. But I also think the arousal state is an embodied state, and that was a huge journey
Yeah,
for me. It didn't come
yeah.
easily for me.
It's a very much like a present moment, but like wanting to stay here
Hmm.
versus I need to get to orgasm, right? Like
Correct.
breaking that cultural linear pathway
Hmm.
and being like, I actually just want to stay here. I want to hang out
Yes.
in this. I like this room a lot. Like that's a whole new way of thinking about things, and probably not like beginner 101 at this point. But
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it is 101 because sometimes climax or orgasm isn't on the table, or it isn't on the table yet. And when we position it on the pedestal of the only thing that is worthy in our sexual lives, then the arousal room sounds like the foyer and not its own like beautiful room. It's like, well, I mean, we'll stay here.
freaking palladium.
That's right, right. And,
Yeah.
and what you're saying is, and that's why it's the radical thought is arousal can be in and of itself really good for you and enough. And it doesn't have to be the lesser than of who we are as sexual beings. It can really be something that, like, put your toe in the door. Just try that. And sometimes that's exactly where you have to start. It doesn't have to be something that you build into.
And if there's feelings that come up or freeze states or stress when arousal enters the body or you get there, that's when we would want to bring in a sex therapist.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And just learning how like our brain is such a big help and such a big hindrance to our I mean, what you're talking about earlier is the excitation cycle, which I don't love that word either. Please come up with something else. And please change the
You're very good with
stupid
words. You
graph.
come up with
Yes.
it. You
Yeah.
should coin it.
I want a different graph for it. The graph really pisses me off. It's such a misogynistic way of looking at
The
it.
linear one that goes boom, 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 and
Yes.
bumps up. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Like I think we were talking about that. That's like Masters and Johnson or Kinsey or something. It's like
It is.
it's like these round little humps and then orgasms at the top.
And then it has and there's another one that has, like, it's more jagged, and then it has this plateau, and it actually makes the orgasm look like it's nothing as well. It's bizarre, but it's really not based on female pleasure and the female, arousal cycle, it isn't.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, we
I
could talk
love
about that.
it. You're like, when you redesign that, please and publish it. Please come back on the
Right,
podcast.
right.
So in your book, and I would encourage people to get the book because it goes very thorough into the 9 pillars of holistic sexuality. We do have time though
You're in the
for
book too. Yeah, I
I'm in
put
the
you in.
book.
Yes, yeah, I
I
put a
have to
shout
go
out to you.
search for it. Thank you.
Yes.
We do have time for you. Will you tell us about your favorite pillar?
Yes. So I mentioned sensuality in it. I want to get to like one of my favorite pillars is connection. And it's one of the last ones that we get to. And it's because I think it is. So it's often really a powerhouse of what sexuality really should mean. And it's also been a place where it has been weaponized the most. And a lot of people have to back away from to unlearn.
Ooh, the weaponization of connection.
Hmm.
Whoa. Yeah, I can see that.
Hmm.
Like it's
So
obvious. It's obvious now that you say that.
yeah. So I wait us through the other pillars so that the technique of going into each of these pillars, it has more of a muscle memory. And then I hit you with connection. And it's so beautiful when people are ready for it and prepared to the bravery muscle has already started. And you really need to have a lot of bravery to get into what connection means to you, because again, it gets into like I'll say just even religion. Religion has a big place that we have to unpack things for people in the sexuality world for some people, not everybody. And I talk about it in this pillar of how do you make sense of things that you were taught that your body didn't necessarily agree with, but society told you this, and it becomes this like tanglement. And now where you are in your life, what feels right for you? And if you're still in a religious setting, how do you make sense of that? And for instance, like the sex before marriage is the only good marriage, or is the only good sex, and is the only sanctioned sex, like that is still so pervasive in people's bodies that even if they've been married for 25 years, they still have this guttural reaction to it, that they still feel bad. I've had people that have asked me, do you think that the ghost of my father watches us have sex? Like, what do I do about that? And how do I get out of that aspect of it? Which isn't necessarily the first thing you think of with connection. That's just one. That's actually just like 2 paragraphs in that chapter, because there's so much richness in what connection is. But really, I try to bring home the concept that holistic sexuality is the core of who you are. It's the essence of you. And if you are reviewing and doing these 9 pillars, it is a 360 view of who you are as a being. And as a therapist, what I see more than anything is that people can live a long time in pain, which may be different than what you see with your patients, but people can't live a long time without their purpose, without a purpose. And how you define purpose is different for everybody, but in almost everyone's definition of what their purpose is, connection is an aspect of it. And for the people who really know who they are, have an authentic view of who they are, those are the people whose connections, like when they show up to be seen and to be valued and to be wanted, when they show up authentically to another person or a community, they're the ones who actually get to experience the amazingness of being seen, wanted, and valued for the truth of who they are. When you don't know who you are, when you're performing, when you are keeping parts of yourself hidden through shame and trauma and all the other things that happen between us and the truth of us, or they just haven't spent the time for self-development, you don't get the richness and goodness of it. When someone wants you sexually, it doesn't feel like the truth of you, which really devalues the experience and the connection, as opposed to when you show up in the truth of who you are and somebody wants you, you're like, that's right. Fuck yes, you want me. Yes, this is great. And I want to be wanted in this. And that's just the sexual word wanting. But I just mean, even just like, do you want to be friends with me? Do you like me? And to really be able to accept somebody's, yeah, I do. Sure. I think you're great. You have to know who they're saying yes to and who you're offering to them. And as a therapist, I see so much pain of people. It's how you say, like, I have tons of friends and I'm so lonely. Or, I'm in this marriage and I'm so lonely in this. It's because we haven't done we haven't done that level of work in our connection. And again, back to your point that the ripple effect, when you do know who you are, sometimes it means you end relationships, but it often means you you're cutting out the weeds and you are letting the flowers grow
Well,
and the
yeah,
right
because
people come in.
there's a lack of authenticity that you start becoming intolerable to.
Correct.
And
Well
I think
worded.
what you're saying, I'm like trying to cram this in 3 minutes, but what you're saying is like women want to be wanted, and ideally, you're going to be wanted for who you are, how you show up, your whole package. And I think and because we don't know who that is, we
Yes.
sell ourselves short in saying, I want to be sexually wanted because I've got the right lips, or I've got the right breasts, or I've got the right hips, or I've got the right vulva. It's a sloppy second or third to actually being wanted for who you are. And then those other things really don't matter.
Yes. That's it.
I think that's absolutely huge and an amazing place to stop. And now I need to like go write a blog post on that. Tell us where we can find your book and find you, my good friend.
Yes. Yes. So I have a page on my website, Dr. Juliana, that all the links to the online world where you can choose what store you want to buy it in. But it's Barnes and Noble and Amazon are the bigger places where you can buy my book September 23rd.
Yay! Go learn about it. Holistic sexuality, the 9 pillars of holistic sexuality. This was an amazingly fun and I hope insightful conversation for a lot of people today. Thank you.
Thank you.